Hey everyone! In the last video, we created a full stack application and then we had it hosted on Heroku. Now I want to implement MongoDB. So to get everything started, let's press ls to make sure we're in the file where our server.js and package.json is. I'm going to install npm install Mongoose, which is an ORM, an object reference model that's going to make it a little bit easier to talk with MongoDB. And I'm going to hit enter. Cool. So to connect to our DB, let's get under our port and give it some space. I'm going to say mongoose equals require mongoose. All right, and underneath mongoose, I need the URI. So I'm going to say const all capitals. I'm going to say mongodb underscore URI. That is going to equal to process.env.mongodb URI. And I'll show you where this is coming from later. When we post this on Heroku and we get MLab set up, we'll see where that comes into play. So otherwise, I need it to connect to my local host, my local environment for MongoDB. I'm going to say mongodb / localhost / and I'm going to call this MERN template. All right, localhost MERN template, awesome. And so now I'll actually need to connect to it, right? So, let's get, VScode's wanting to fight me today. So let's say mongoose.connect, and this is where we put our MongoDB URI. And then to get rid of some depreciation warnings that you're going to end up getting through building a MongoDB app, let's just get rid of it right now by saying use new URL parser, set that to true. All right. And let's set use unified topology. That's also going to be set to true. And one more, which is use find and modify, but this one is going to be set to false. Cool. And so after we connect, let's give ourselves a little message like console log you have been connected to MongoDB. How about you are? There you go, much better. And if we're using a promise, we should probably resolve any errors if they come through. So let's use this catch block to console log our error. All right, and this should be okay. Let's ls, make sure we know where we are. Great. I could say nodemon server.js. Let's hit enter. Cool. And see how it connected to our local host, and it looked like it did connect to MongoDB successfully. That's great. You know what though? I would much rather say npm run server instead. So let me add that that script in there. So cool. See where I have client? Let's go under here and say server. And so next time I need to run the server, I will just run npm run server, and that script will run nodemon server.js. Cool. Get rid of these warnings, and that looks good to me. So just for example, okay, npm run server. Great. Awesome. So now we need to build a connection though. Collection, not connection. Let's create a folder in here. And I'm going to call this models. Great. Inside models, I am going to create an index.js file, which I'm going to route all my collections through. And then I'm going to go into new file here, and I'm going to create to-do.js. Cool. So to-do.js, that's going to be where our main collection. This is the schema for our to-do. So let's go in here and say const mongoose equals require mongoose. Awesome. It'll be so nice to have a template because this is stuff that I end up doing for all my projects. So we'll just get rid of the repetitive stuff now. So this is going to equal to mongoose.schema. And now we need to use it by saying const to-do schema equals a new schema object. And this is where we put the parameters here. So for instance, I will be making sure to add, and this should be lowercase. Great. So one of the value for my to-do schema is going to be text. That's going to be a required value. So it will be of type string. That's the first thing we want to get rid of. I don't want there to be any white space around the actual string itself, so I'm going to set trim to true, and you shouldn't be able to send in an empty to-do item, so I'm going to make it required and send back string is required if I forget while I'm adding a to-do. All right, so let's get on a new line here, and now I need to say const to-do equals mongoose dot model, and so this needs to correspond. So this needs to correspond with this bit right here, and we assign it to the to-do schema. And we're still not done. We have to export it. So module dot exports equals to-do. Sweet. And like I said, I'm going to route this all through my index file. So I'm going to say module dot exports equals, let's open up this object here, and I'm going to say to do is require to do. Sweet. So if I were to build another bit of schema called users, for instance, then I would just have to run say users and then require users, just like I did with to do. And it's cool because it means I don't have to import all of these individually. I can just import my index.js from models, and I have access to all my different schema types. So that's cool. Let's close this down because that's pretty much all we're needing from here. We might want to leave this just for our routes because we have no way really to connect to actually talk to our database. So I'm going to just copy that whole route. I'm going to change, that's going to be a get, and I'm going to say all. So this is going to be an endpoint that is going to make a request that once you hit this endpoint, it's going to send you all the entries in MongoDB, which means I have to get rid of this res.send bit. Let's get rid of that. And inside here, I have to make sure to, actually outside here, I have to import the DB. So I'm going to say const DB equals require. Whoa, what happened there? Cool. Models, perfect. And I don't have to specify index.js because it will just naturally know to go to index.js. Index is like it's a name you can use as kind of a default because that's what JavaScript is going to run as default if it's not specified. It'll look for an index file and run that instead. So, we have to be in API routes. So now that I have DB in here, let's use it. I'm going to say db.find, and if I leave it empty, then it'll just look for all the entries. Then let's grab all the to-dos, and let's just res.send back all those to-dos. All right, so let's ls, and let's just run our server, npm run server. All right, I connected to MongoDB. I have my localhost 5000 up. Let's go split screen so we can see what's happening here. Now, that's to be expected, but let's go ahead and hit this example endpoint. Cool, so we're getting our message from the back end. Now let's go ahead and hit the all endpoint. db.find is not a function. Oh, and you see how I'm using just db.find, but the problem is I should be looking for db.todo because that's what comes back from that object. So let's say db.todo.find. All right, let's refresh this, and let's just go ahead and hit enter, and we get back an empty array. And the reason why is because we haven't added anything to our to-dos, to this to-do list yet. So just to prove that we do have a Mongoose database, let's create a route that we will use to post stuff to. So let's say post. This is going to be at the endpoint new. Find needs to be changed to create, and I need to add an object in here, text, and let's say this is working as our first to do. All right, and what's going to happen is it should send back the to-do that we just added. We won't be able to use our browser like this because this would only be a GET request, but what we can do is use a tool called Postman to test our backend route without having to build out the whole front end to test these routes. Cool. So it looks like I have this endpoint at all already. Let's go ahead and send that request. We have nothing in here. Let me go ahead and just copy this because I will use this tab here, change that endpoint to new, and I have to send it with something in the body. I'm going to say text is this is awesome. Cool. And so now that I have this, instead of having it say this is working, let's instead say rec.body.text. Okay. So I'm going to save this out, and let's go ahead and send this. So we got back the to-do. Let's change this. So it's kind of strange that I put quotes around there, but let's go ahead and say this is another. Awesome. And now let's make a GET request to get all these to-dos. Cool. Awesome. And so now if we come over here and if we were to refresh this, now we have our two to-dos. This is awesome. So now we're ready to deploy. Let's go ahead and close this down. I'm going to close down Postman. Let's get our browser open and let's navigate to Heroku. Okay, and so right now we should be on the demo MERN template. This was the project that I created for this. So now I go to resources and I need to add MLab. So let's click on MLab. And I will provision this. If this is your first time doing it, it's probably going to ask you for some credit card information, but then after that you get to choose your free tier or you get to choose more if you need that. So I'm going to provision this. Awesome. And so if I go to settings right now, if I reveal the config vars, I can see the MongoDB URI is this MongoDB URL, is this URL right here, which is our connection to MLab. So if we go to resources and I click on MLab, I can see this is now this is going to be my production database. If I go into users, that is the URI information. So let's come back here and notice that that is this bit right here. So that's why it'll, if it's being ran on Heroku, it's going to, if it's being ran on Heroku, it's going to run MLab's URL. Otherwise, it's going, if it's on my computer, it's going to connect to a database called MERN template. So, good stuff here. Let's run git status to see where we're at. And you know what I'm just realizing, actually? We haven't tested this on our front end, and we might as well do it, right? So let's get into our client. Go into source, go into app.js, and see how we already have this Axios request. Let's come in here. And I'm just going to make another Axios request, only this time it will be to all. And yeah, same stuff applies. So now let's open up ls. Let's run npm run dev and hit enter, and let's see what we get. So here's our second object with our data, and that's how we know that it is making the connection to our database. This is all great. So let's come to deploy right here, and this is the steps we're going to have to run right here. So let's go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to close down all of that. Let's ls to make sure we're in our server. I'm going to run git status. Okay, let's run git add all, git commit -m, implement MongoDB, and I'm going to hit enter. And now I'm going to say git push Heroku master. Okay, so if I expand this, it looks pretty good. Let's make sure, well, there's two links here. Don't click on the Git. Instead, let's click on this, this link right here that starts with the HTTPS and ends with .com. Again, that loaded really freaking quickly. I wonder if that's just an old one. Let's instead come over here. Let's refresh. Let's click on Open App. All right, this is our app. Let's inspect, and we have our two objects in here. This is the message from our backend, which is a success. Let's open up this first object, because now we have the empty array, and that's the array from the to-dos on MLab, which we haven't added any to-dos, so it kind of makes sense we have an empty array. And this is a MERN stack app template, so awesome. I hope this is helpful.